Well, there we are. We've got the piece of board up and painted, a couple of coats of paint on it. So now I'm ready to do the scenery, and I've got the materials already there. The filler, I've decanted that into the tub already, a bit of colour to go in it and some water, and of course the all-important cup of tea. So we're going to add some water in. It's supposed to do 2.5 of powder to 1 of water, but I didn't bring a measure up with me. That's a bit dry and lumpy, so we'll add a little bit more water. I know from past experience you can go from lumps of rock to slop in a very short period of time, so it's a little bit at a time. I want it fairly creamy so that it'll spread easily over, but at the same time fill any cracks up. Nearly there, it's getting almost there. Let's just put a little bit more in. I mustn't go too far because I've emptied the rest of the packet in here, so what I've got is what I've got to use. I'm going to add a little bit of acrylic paint in there. Again, a little bit at a time, so that if the scenery gets chipped, it will come out brown rather than white, because the South Downs are several miles away from the Hellingly Hospital Railway, so we don't want, that's very nearly, I think it's just a tad too light at the moment. It was all Sussex clay round Hellingly with Hellingly gravel underneath, as I discovered once when digging out for a cesspit at the nursery. Right, so there we are, we've got a thing full of lightish brown. We don't want it too dark, but just enough that it doesn't glare if it ever gets chipped. So we're going to go over to the layout. Right, so I'm going to use a paintbrush to apply it on, rather than a trowel or something like that. So we pop bits in the corners like that, first of all, just along the base to fill that crack up at the bottom of the back seam. Now this particular area, I'm not going to get too enthusiastic about putting this across, because this is going to end up being a ploughed field. Well, a being ploughed field, so it will across here the plough will be going along. In fact, I haven't got the right tractor at the moment. One is on order, courtesy of the family, but it would be something like that with a plough there, and he'll be doing his opening split, so it'll be turf all around. So that's going to require some special treatment. So we'll leave that. So we'll just paste that. It's probably still a little bit light, but at least it's not the glaring white that you can see there at the moment. Now I've got to be careful not to get it on the sleepers. I probably should have used some masking tape there. So go along like that, just get a little bit in there. That of course will have the ballast shoulder running along there, so I don't need to get too close with that. And then we come along here. This bit obviously will undo now, but the other out here I'm going to leave till later on. Right, well I've done that one at normal speed. We'll do the rest at higher speed. Well, I did learn two things. One, I needed to use a shorter paintbrush. And two, perhaps not to mix up so much. But never mind. It's a pretty old packet anyway, so I think I'll have to go and get a new packet at some point. I think more experienced you're going to tell me you could have told me so, but it has turned out rather pale, so I'm going to have to mix up some paint now, paint over the top of it so there's a brown background to any scenic treatments I do after this. So I've mixed up some acrylic paints, a bit of burnt umber and a bit of black, just to make it fairly dark. That's working reasonably well. I think it's probably going to be a bit too dark now. But then it may well come out a bit paler. Hello, welcome back. It's a few weeks since I last did anything to the layout. I've been sorting various things out with reopening our church. Now we're allowed to meet again, and also getting it sorted out for live streaming out to the internet. So I'm going to do some ballasting today. So let's have a look at the what I've got here, and I've got three different sorts of ballast here. There's a packet of Gauge Master granite, grey granite, some sort of brown granite, which I think must, by the shape of the bag and everything, must have been Gauge Master as well. I'm not sure where this came from, and this is the one I'm actually going to use because it's dark brown. The track on the hospital railway back in the 50s was obviously beginning to get a bit neglected, I think, and so we're going to have that dark brown, and I'll probably have put a few clumps of grass in it as well. But so what I've got here, so we'll put those to the side. I've also got some PVA glue, which I'll dilute later on, and also some water in a spray thing for wetting the ballast before I start dropping the glue in. And somewhere on the bench here, yeah, here we are, I have an eyedropper, which I shall use to drop the diluted glue on with. So this is a bit awkward, so I'm going to actually put it into one of these little silver things that you get individual fruit pies in, and we're going to take that over to the layout and put it on the track, use the brush to smooth it out with. So let's go to the layout. So we come to the layout, and I'm going to ballast in there as well, so that when you're looking from that angle, and same with going that angle, you still see ballasted track. And I've got a little bit of back scene in there, which it's got to be finished off yet, but now this is the tricky bit, getting the ballast in there. And in fact, I think I'm going to have to go over the back here to put some in. Whoops. And then we use the brush to smooth it out so that the sleepers are showing, as this is not 19th century track. And we bring it forward like that. Bringing it out so that, as I said, the sleepers are showing. Doesn't matter if the odd grain gets left, because on the real track you will get the odd bit of ballast sitting on top of sleepers. But the reason they stopped burying the sleepers completely was that the wooden sleepers could rot quietly away underneath the ballast, and nobody knew that they were rotting, whereas you've got the track gangs going along now can where there's still wooden track. Even the reserve railways are using concrete sleepers these days, but they can where there are still wooden sleepers, they can get a fairly good idea if a sleeper is getting a bit rotten. If it looks all right on top, but possibly they suspect it might be rotting, because you can tap it, and if it sounds sort of fairly solid, then you know it's okay. But if it gives a rather dull thud, and then you know it's not. So that's done the first little bit there. Just shaping it in with the brush, so I can put a little bit more on now. We'll shape that along there like that. A little bit less on the outside. It's enough to create this ballast shoulder, as they call it. There we go, and then I can got to go back a bit there with that, as I've missed a little bit there. In fact, I think I need to tip a little bit more in. There we go. It's quite good this, because you can shape it to make a bit of a pouring spout. There we go. Still not enough there. I don't want to put too much, otherwise I've got to try and clear it all up again, but there we go. Right, well, I've got a little bit more tidying up to do, but that's nearly there, and we'll come back when I'm ready to squirt it with water and drop the diluted glue on. Right, well, that's got the dry ballast in. Before I do the nerve-wracking bit of wetting it and gluing it, I'm going to reach for the most important modelling tool in the kit. Cheers. Okay, I've sorted that ballast out, and I've also, as you may see there, put some newspaper along to cover up the areas I'm not going to damp, ready for ballasting, so that the scenery doesn't get too wet, because the paper's sort of slightly above the scenery. I'm hoping that that'll absorb the moisture and then dry off gradually while I'm sorting the ballasting out. So let's see how this works. This is the nervy bit, because once you start spraying with one of these, it can either work nicely or all the ballast coagulates and you have to start again, basically. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to squirt in. It seems to be working all right. I mustn't squirt too hard, otherwise I'll blow all the ballast away. So that's water with just a drop or two of good old does your hands as well as your dishes, or whatever it is. Next thing I've got to do is mix up, do a mix of 50-50 PVA and water. Okay, I'm going to just get rid of that traverser out of the way in case that gets stuck. I overshoot the mark, and we drops in. I think I've got the consistency about right. And hopefully this will dry clear and without too much of a shine. It's going to be a bit of a long drag. I'll just do a little bit on camera and then we'll do the rest. Well, that seems to work pretty well. So I'm just going to peel the newspaper off now to let the air circulate around the ballast so that it'll dry out. We'll have to leave it overnight to dry, so I won't be able to do anything more today to the layout, but here goes anyway. We'll just carefully peel that off like so. And I'll also put some over the level crossings just to protect them as well, so they don't get any glue in them. And of course the other thing is always to remember to wash out anything that's had glue in it, otherwise it'll be unusable next time, which I've already done. So there we are.